It was only a record-dropping crime because of the amount of crime that was allowed to go on when Mr. Gore wasn't in office. And fortunately, that individual left. We are now able to tackle some of the crime and prosecute those that should be held accountable for the violent crimes that they're acting upon. I don't know if local control has anything to do with that, is where I'm going with that answer.
Yesterday, Governor Mike Parson announced an executive order regarding foreign ownership of farmland. Number one, your response to that, and also, do you guys plan to do more? He said that he called it a placeholder because he's worried that you guys might not get anything done.
Well, I mean, we worked on it last year. Representative Hafner began tackling that issue. We certainly don't want our adversaries owning farmland or owning property close to our bases in the state of Missouri. I'm glad our governor recognized it as an issue. I want to protect Missourians, but I also want to protect Missourians from good investments that are made in this state by honest out-of-state, out-of-country, other country investors like Bayer, Ralston Purina selling out to Nestle in Switzerland. I mean, we have some good actors. We have to balance that, and I believe our caucus and our body as a whole will look into that and protect Missourians. We all want to protect Missourians from our foreign adversaries' influence in the state of Missouri.
Last session's
including balloons that fly over.
Last session's veto sort of upended a whole bunch of policies in that public safety omnibus. Is there going to be a difference in strategy in terms of constructing bills, what's contained in them, as a means of sort of getting stuff across the finish line better?
So the governor vetoed, I believe it was Senate Bill 189, which was Lane Roberts' essential House bill that he'd worked so hard to do. And that was vetoed for particular reasons. I think we're going to look at those reasons why the governor vetoed it, round those edges, and pass a bill that's good on crime that maybe give the governor not cause to veto that bill. But yes, it'll be a priority.
On initiative petition reform, in the off-season, Ohio voters rejected initiative petition reform in their state. Did that give you pause to pursue it in Missouri?
Thank God we're not Ohio. No, I mean, it was a different apples and oranges, right? I fervently believe our Constitution should not be amended as easily as it is. And I think our voters need to be informed in a transparent process on how that initiative should be vetted. And I believe there needs to be a higher threshold and a higher standard to pass that. We will work on it yet again. I think the fingers, though, don't need to be pointed on this end of the building. We've passed initiative petition, I believe, for the last 5 years, maybe 6. I would welcome the opportunity to explain to the voters why we're passing initiative petition reform, because I don't think we need to keep adding 20 pages to our Constitution for marijuana that's a lawyer's dream for employment, because no one understands it.
As you know, there are already campaigns circulating petitions to put abortion questions on the ballot, perhaps various different questions. To the voters who are looking at that question and signing their name to those petitions, is it fair to them to change the rules in the middle of the game?
We haven't gotten there yet, right? I would love to get this initiative petition thing on the ballot in August and have it passed and see when that would be put on the ballot. But you're inferring that initiative petition might be put on the ballot in August or November, and it's assuming they get the signatures.
Can you clarify, would you like to see what on the ballot in August?
I would love to see initiative petition reform on the ballot in August that we pass out of the House or the Senate, whatever we can agree on. You know, I stand for life, and this is yet one more reason why we should have passed initiative petition reform years ago when the House has been sending that over to the Senate for a long time. But that's a question perhaps for the courts.
Mr. Speaker, one of the things that the Missouri Children's Division has been struggling with for a year or two is being able to hire enough child abuse investigators. And the key thing that DSS officials and child welfare advocates have told me is the starting salary of investigators of $43,000 a year when they have a huge caseload is just too low. Do you expect the House to raise the salaries for investigators in other children's divisions?
You know, I think we're always open to creating a competitive field. We don't want to create competition amongst ourselves, though, within the government by just creating inflation. But we're always looking to address those needs to protect our citizens, just as we have for police just this past year with the Missouri State Highway Patrol. That is always on the table. I want to make sure that those that are committing crimes against Missouri's children are held accountable, and if it takes looking into those hires on how we can do that, that'd be great. Because child trafficking is horrible. It's on the rise, we're told. You know, those crimes need to be looked into, and how that plays out and who we pay and how that plays out. It will be through the budget. The process will work itself through. but I welcome that conversation to make sure we're taking care of our children.
The FRA expires, you mentioned that's something that's going to have to be renewed. How vital is that, and what are the potential obstacles?
Well, I would just make it a rhetorical question. How vital is $3.5 to $4 billion on a $50 billion budget? If we don't get it passed, I don't think our budget can absorb a $3.5 to $4 billion hit. I think it's important. We passed it a couple years ago. I look forward to tackling that issue now, but I don't think we can afford not to pass it.
Are you confident that you can continue leading the chamber throughout this session, given the ethics complaint that was filed against you?
Absolutely. Look behind me.
I wanted to ask about when we can expect to see hearings to start. When are you going to start referring bills? Are we waiting until next week, later next week, the following week?
Excellent question, Emily. We'll follow our process and our procedures. So today is opening day, right? Opening day of session. We'll first read bills today. We'll second read them tomorrow. Bills will be avidly referred tomorrow. They will then lay over on the calendar on a tech session and then be brought up for hearing according to when those chairs decide to bring them up for hearing. But myself and the floor leader and the chairs are all in discussion on how we're going to do that and begin. I anticipate beginning promptly.
From talking with both legislators of both parties, they're pretty pessimistic about this session, and they don't really feel like much is going to get done. What would you say to that pessimism?
Doom and gloom has no business in this building. I mean, if you live by that, you wouldn't want to serve the public, right? I mean, we come down here, it's hard to pass a bill, and it should be. But we have to do the job. I signed up for this. I welcome the challenge. We're going to pass good stuff. I hope the Senate works with us. But I'm optimistic, and I think the colleagues, 163 of us, are optimistic to get good things done for the Missourians.
What do you think of possible exemptions to the St. Louis earnings tax? Do you think that those bills are going to go far? Well, do they have your support?
The earnings tax is a peculiar thing. I think it hurts St. Louis City overall, but they've demonstrated, they argue that they need that 1%, but they're losing population. This is why it's going through the committee process. I'm going to leave it to the committee to vet what exemptions should be included on that. I'm going to leave that up to fervent floor debate to say, hey, this should be an exemption. How are we going to work this in? And where it goes. But I respect the city. I want the city of St. Louis to thrive. It's been home for me for 53 years, and I want it to thrive. But I don't think that earnings tax is actually the right way to help the city thrive. But I'm open to debate, open to the committee hearing process.
So having passed their version of the senior property tax freeze that passed last session, still a lot of questions about eligibility, and even supporters of the idea felt like it wasn't well-written legislation last session. Will that get
I believe it will. I may have misspoke on a number earlier, but I believe that was Senate Bill 190. I could be wrong. I kind of get confused, but it was Senate Bill 190. And I do believe there's clarification and continuity that need to be put into place, because I've been told that 113 counties are looking at it 113 different ways. And I would like continuity to apply for all of Missourians so we know what to expect in all of our counties. That will get looked at.
What does that look like?
Oh, believe me, I'm going to send that to committee and let them work that out. That's deep in the weeds on how that works out for the counties.
Are there any
Pessimism of the last session.
deal breakers for you this session?
A Chinese balloon flying over the state of Missouri again? I'm privileged to work here. I love working with my colleagues, 163 of us, my caucus behind me. I'm optimistic. This is my last hurrah, and I look forward to having a productive year and producing for the citizens of Missouri. That's what I came down here to serve.
So this is a campaign year where some of your colleagues, you yourself, are running for higher office. We're likely to see campaign speeches on the floor. The Senate's been gridlocked for the last 3 years. You have your ethics complaint. How do you look past all of that this is going to be an optimistic session?
Easily. That's all doom and gloom and just drama. I want to get past the drama. I believe the drama will be behind us shortly. Now, what the Senate does, that's their ballgame altogether. In my speech, I said, let's put this pettiness behind us when we're working for the citizens of Missouri on the floor. And I expect people to do that. I'm not going to give out campaign speeches on the floor. I'm there to work as your Speaker of the House and help Missouri pass laws that are beneficial for all citizens. Simple.
At the end of last session, you seemed disappointed by the slow work of the Senate, and you actually held a press conference before the Senate ended. Is there any divide between what's going on in the House and the Senate? Do you feel any kind of divide between House Republicans and Senate Republicans?
You know, I don't speak for everybody. I have my own personal perceptions at times, of course, and I get emotional because I buy into what we're doing down here. I believe in it. So yes, I do get frustrated, but the Senate has its own rules. We have our rules. I got to play within our sandbox. They're going to play within theirs. That doesn't mean I can't get frustrated, but you know, personalities change, people change, but we're working together and we're meeting with them all the time. And no, it's just part of the process. That's what you want it to be. You don't want it to be a rubber stamp to pass bills, right? So look forward to working with the Senate. Look forward to working with the governor.
Is there childcare, on childcare?
Yeah.
That you said is an area as bipartisan cooperation. What do you want to accomplish on the front of childcare this year? That was a priority for Parson last year.
I haven't heard what the governor's priorities are yet this year. I assume we'll hear them at the State of the State. That's not for a long way off. It's like 3 weeks off. You know, I mean, childcare is important, but we want to make sure we're providing childcare equitably for everybody that needs it, and that includes large businesses, small businesses. Well, you know, as that bill goes through the process, I'm sure it will be vetted and people will have their say.
That tax credit or something, like what do you want to see with that ideally?
Last year, I think it might have been proposed as a tax credit by the governor, but again, we're going to have to look at the budget. I think we're going to look at the budget this year a little bit different than we did last year. We're not going to have that influx of money coming in, and we have to be good stewards of the people's money. You elected us to balance the budget. We have to do that, and we're going to do it.
Is there a path forward on sports betting?
I wouldn't bet on it, but no pun intended. You know what? I want there to be. I filed a sports book bill years ago, and I don't want sports book managed again by foreign out-of-state interests when there's a platform in Russia or China managing a sports book. I think it should be managed here and regulated. So I support sports book. It's been frustrating. It's one of those things you just scratch your head. Why? But
What about removing the expiration?
we're gonna how many last questions do we got?
The transgender legislation, do you support getting rid of the expiration date from last
We
year?
addressed transgender mutilation. I know last year. I was glad to get that done.
So you
Thank
don't
you guys. I
expect it to
appreciate
come
it. You have a
up
great new year.
Thank you, Speaker.